Now we're going to look at China and the new imperialism. For centuries, China had had a favorable balance of trade because of a trade surplus. Westerners had a trade deficit with China, buying more from the Chinese than they sold to them. That sounds kind of familiar to most Americans, doesn't it? Kind of what we're experiencing right now. But that was the situation at the time. And then the British began trading opium, grown in India, in exchange for Chinese tea. Now it's important to note that opium is highly addictive, or all opiates are highly addictive and can be very destructive. It's harvested from the poppy plant, which now mostly grows in parts of Afghanistan and Pakistan. Pakistan, though, used to be part of India. And so that's where they began to harvest it, and then they, of course, India was under British rule at the time, and then they would exchange it for Chinese tea. Well, China didn't like this. They didn't like seeing what it did to their people, and so they asked Britain to stop the drug trade. The British refused, and this led to the First Opium War in 1839. Without modern weapons and fighting methods, the Chinese were easily defeated. Then there was a second Opium War from 1856 to 1860, and China was forced to accept trade and investment on unfavorable terms for the foreseeable future. The Treaty of Nanjing ended the war, and in that, Britain received a huge indemnity, and British citizens gained the right of extraterritoriality, which meant that they no longer had to live under Chinese rule in Nanjing. They were subject to the rule of their home country. Afterward, France, Russia, and the United States each made specific demands on China. China felt pressure to sign treaties stipulating that the opening of more ports, and allowing Christian missionaries into China. Poorly maintained irrigation systems and canals led to massive flooding in the Huang Valley, and a population explosion caused hardship for China's peasants. And this eventually helped things kind of boil over into what became known as the Taiping Rebellion. And this took place in 1850. The Taiping rebels hated the Qing dynasty, and they controlled large parts of China. The Taiping Rebellion resulted in the deaths of an estimated 20 to 30 million people. The Qing dynasty prevailed after 14 years with the help of foreign troops. Another problem was that educated Chinese did not agree about modernizing. Some felt Western ideas and technology threatened Confucianism. Reformers who wanted to adopt Western ways did not have government support. Meanwhile, China's defeat in the Sino-Japanese War of 1894 encouraged European nations to carve out spheres of influence in China, which these spheres of influence were areas where, once again, they set up exclusive trading rights with local warlords. Dr. Sun Yat-sen, a revolutionary, sought to overthrow the Manchu Dynasty and establish a republic, and he sparked the beginning of a Chinese nationalist movement. In 1899, the United States sponsored the Open Door Policy. This was actually written by Secretary of State John Hay, and this was really designed to help imperial latecomers like itself. And it urged the Europeans to allow free trade in China while respecting China's territorial integrity. It guaranteed that no one country really would take over China. And the Manchu Dynasty was ruled from 1860 until 1908 by the Empress Dowager Cixi. And it was also during this time that that we experienced the Boxer Rebellion. This was caused by Chinese resentment of foreigners. A group known as the Fists of Righteous Harmony began the rebellion, and they practiced a style of martial arts that involved striking. At this point in time, most of your Eastern martial arts were not well known in the United States. People weren't familiar with things like kung fu or karate or any of these Asian martial arts that had become popular. And so the closest thing that they could really relate to with this style of martial art was boxing. And so they referred to them as the Boxers, and the name kind of stuck. In 1900, this group, once again the Boxers, or the Fist of Righteous Harmony, attacked Western missionaries and traders in northern China, killing 300, and they laid siege to the foreign settlement in Beijing. The rebellion ended as an international force entered the conflict. When the Empress Dowager Cixi died in 1908, the 2-year-old Pu Yi inherited the throne, and China slipped into chaos. In 1911, uprisings in the provinces quickly spread, toppling the Qing dynasty.